Hello, I'm Lydia and you're listening to Lens from the Fens. Hi everyone, welcome back to Lens from the Fens. I hope that you're all doing very well. So a lot of us have been experiencing really strange and cold weather recently. I have experienced hail, snow, thunderstorms, really strong winds, all coming off from northern winds. And unfortunately this has resulted in a common crane chick that was born at Willow Tree Fen, not far from me, unfortunately died due to the cold weather. So I'm still hoping that the pair can still breed, maybe not this year, but hopefully in the coming years. So it's a bit of unfortunate news to hear a couple of days ago. But on a bit of a lighter note, I have mentioned previously that I would really like to see the orcas of the West Coast community, more specifically Jonco and Aquarius. They are the two male bulls that are part of the group, and they just travel around together all along the Western Isles in Scotland and further north. But they've also gone further south, especially this time of year. They tend to venture to the warmer waters, and they were actually spotted off the coast of Land's End in Cornwall a day ago of this recording. So that's really exciting to know that they're still alive, because as far as I know, Jonco is about 60 years old. So it's really a positive story to hear that they're still well and they're still travelling, and hopefully they will return back up the west coast of Scotland. When I go there in August, I'll be staying on Mull for a couple of weeks. So it'll be really nice to see them further up north later in the year. So with this episode, I wanted to talk about my editing process, because a lot of the time I often go by what subjects I'm photographing rather than the specific side of how I do my photography work. So I mentioned, I think it was in my last episode or the episode before, I was experimenting a different editing software, which is Paintshop Pro. I'll just mention now that this is not sponsored at all, this segment. It is purely my personal experience with this software and to provide a bit of insight into how I edit my images with this software. So Paintshop Pro is an editing software created by Corel, and Corel create multiple softwares to cater for all sorts of creative minds. These include Corel Draw, Painter, Video Studio, and this software, Paintshop Pro. So I used an early version of Paintshop Pro back when I was studying my foundation degree, purely because I found it a lot cheaper at the time compared to Photoshop or Adobe services, and it also featured similar tools in comparison to Photoshop that I was already familiar with. Since then, the software now includes multiple features, one of those actually including AI technology, which is all in aid to help enhance your imagery further. So after trialling it, I did their 30-day free trial. I think that's offered on almost all of their softwares if you wanted to check it out. But I purchased the software Paintshop Pro 2021 about a week ago. And there are different versions of it. There is the Paintshop Pro Ultimate, which contains a lot more applications such as HDR Studio and Photo Mirage, to name a couple. But because I avoid doing too much editing for my work, I chose the original pack as it was more suitable for what I needed to edit my images with. So the software provides 3 workspaces: Photography, Essentials and Complete. So the photography software is very much catered for anyone who is new to editing work or editing images. It has a very simplified interface, and a lot of that features one-click solutions for easy editing. So that's where part of the AI technology comes in, where it works out the best alterations to make for your image to get the best quality, the best colour, without going too much in depth in creating layers of all different types of adjustments. The Essentials Pack, this is pretty much all the main editing and retouching tools that you would find similar to Photoshop. And this is for both beginner to intermediate users, or like me, where I prefer working with quite simple tools. So this can include dodging and burning if I want to change the exposure of a certain part of the image, clone tools, or the blending tools. If there's any sort of interfering details that I don't really want in my image, I'll use the Essential software for that. And then the Complete software, this is very much for professionals who want to do a lot more editing with their work. So it features all the professional editing and design tools, and also has a Manage tab to help organise your images better. So since purchasing this and throughout my 30-day free trial with Corel, I was very comfortable using the very basic photography software. Because I want to keep my images as natural looking as possible, I have found that the photography software allows me to do the very quick editing that I usually do if I was just using Photoshop or a different software altogether. So looking at the interface now, there are very simple tabs. Again, for anyone who is new to editing, this is very much catered for that. So the tools available for me, there's a simple open tool if to collect your image from, a save and a save as button. And then for the editing itself, there's a pan tool, zoom out, zoom in, and a fit image to window if you want to view your image on a larger scale. And the feature that I quite liking at the minute is a split view. So this basically appears straight down the middle of your image, one side being the original image and then the other side being the after as in being when you've edited that image. And then further down at the bottom, there's all the different AI softwares that you can use on your image. So there's upsampling, which helps you to enlarge your image, AI denoise. So I use this a few times when I'm working with images that have very low light. This helps to reduce the amount of noise in your image. And there's also AI artifact removal. This is a one-step JPEG enhancement, a style transfer, one-step photo fix. So this is very much up to the software to decide what editing tools are best suited for the image that you're wanting to look at. Then there's your adjust brightness and contrast. This is one of the items that I use quite a lot, pretty much from getting my image onto this software. I'll straight away often go towards the brightness and contrast. Then there's your white balance and your adjust of hue, saturation and lightness. And then in the drop down menu, there is also high pass sharpen, local tone mapping, fill light or clarity, vibrancy and fade correction. So even in the simple format, you're actually getting quite a lot of tools to work with. And it's a very simple, just one-click fix. And then with the split tool, you can then drag it across your image to see what difference that has made to your image. There is also to the right-hand side a crop and an instant effects tool. So again, I often format my images to the crop of 11 by 14. It's pretty much the only crop size that I use for my images. It just allows me to have my own style rather than having it as a simple portrait or landscape size that most of you will be familiar with in things like printed photos. This just allows me to create an ongoing trend for my images, so it will just be consistent throughout my work. It's been that way for quite a few years now. It's just a crop that I seem to like, and the rule of thirds seems to work well for this crop as well. So yeah, when I would bring up the image through the Photoshop software, like I said, I'll go through the brightness and contrast, sometimes a white balance, but that's normally dependent on what camera settings I had set up at the time. So if it was an automatic white balance, it's often correct as to the time that I was taking the photograph. But if I use my image, or if I use my camera for something else, as in like an indoor image or something, and I forget to change the white balance back to auto or sunlight or cloudy, then I'll use this tool just to get the right colour variation. I have tried the one-step photo fix, and sometimes it does come up quite well. It will either enhance the colours really well or change the contrast quite a bit. But I think for what I'm looking for in my images more recently, I liked there to be a bit of shadow, but I don't want it to be really punchy or too saturated. So I've used it a couple of times, but often I like to adjust my brightness and contrast with the slider tool, and also the high pass sharpen. I use that if I want to focus on bringing a subject more sharper to the viewer. And there's also a vibrancy, especially when it's a quite cloudy day or the sun has just disappeared behind the clouds when I'm taking a photo. I often like to bring up as much vibrancy as I can without making it too artificial or too saturated. So now I'm looking at the Essentials software. So this is very much similar to the sort of format you get with Photoshop. You have toolboxes on either side. You've got your zoom, you've got your selection tool, your cropping tool, eraser, paintbrush, text. So it's definitely a bit more catered to people who want to do more than just a basic edit of a photograph. Like if you want to create like a postcard and you want to add text, the Essential software is good for doing that. And then you've got all your usual tabs at the top. So you've got your file and your edit, your view, your image, your adjust. So again, it's very much similar to the workings of Photoshop. But in recent years, the Paintshop Pro software has developed a lot more, especially with the AI, in how the software edits your images. But you can pretty much do whatever you want on the Essentials, and the same goes for the Complete. So again, you've got your hue and saturation. You can do depth of field, add and remove noise, sharpness, softness, backlighting. And then you've got different sorts of effects. So you've got artistic effects, 3D, illumination effects. And then, yeah, just all the standard sort of tools you get with any other editing software. So again, I've used it a couple of times. Pretty much if I want to clone something out, or if I want to remove something with the eraser tool, then I would use it for that. And because I'm quite familiar with those sorts of tools anyway, I can go to that if I've got a bit more spare time, if I want to do further editing with my image. But like I said, the photography tools, the very basic software, it just caters to me, especially if I want to edit while I'm out and about. And yeah, at the minute it is literally just the photography software that I would use on a regular basis. So just looking briefly at the Complete software. As I mentioned earlier, you've got your Manage tab to organise your images better. So if you want to do a selection of images and you want a recurring edit to go across all of them, then you can do that. You've got your layers on the right hand side, and yeah, all the tools pretty much on the left hand side tab. Basically with the icons appear a lot smaller with the more intermediate software you use. So again, anyone familiar with the likes of Photoshop, it's very much similar to that. And yeah, you just get a little bit more creative with it. Like I said, the way that I work and the images that I want to get, they are pretty much as natural as possible. I don't like to do too much editing. And yeah, but with the Paintshop Pro, you have that option to go to your basic editing, or if you want to create something which can be a bit more garish, or you're wanting to clone lots of items in an image, and the sort of graphic design sort of way, then the Essentials and the Complete tool software can cater for that. Because I'm still relatively new at this software, I'm still getting used to wanting to use the Essentials software. But as an overview, I'm really enjoying it. The basic photography software is very simple and easy to use. It can be used for amateurs like myself and professionals, but for any of those that's just starting out in editing, the very basic tools they're easy to read. You don't have to go too much in depth with creating lots of layers for different types of adjustments. It's very much one click and it's done. And the slider tool is really useful to see what a difference that editing has made. I do want to use a bit more of the essential software. Again, if I'm wanting to edit something out the background or in the foreground that I'm not particularly fond of, then the option's there. And I think with the complete tools, I haven't really found a need for that yet, but I feel as though if I want to get a bit more creative and create something a bit more fun, then yeah, all the tools are there and it's pretty much suited for graphic designers as well as photographers. And it's just an all-round good software for me. I think if I was to recommend it, I definitely would. You can try the 30-day free trial if you want to at the Paintshop Pro Corel website, and then you can decide later on if you want to purchase it. But I think value for money, it's really good for what you get and the tools that you have access to straight away. It's just really good. So yeah, this has sort of been a look into what I use for editing my images and then the final products that go up on my social media pages. So yeah, if you're interested, by all means, you can go and check out the Paintshop Pro online. They also provide videos on their YouTube channel as a better insight into what the layout looks like, because I'm literally just talking about it rather than showing you. But yeah, they got videos that you can look at. They provide all sorts of hints and tips on how to make the most out of your Paintshop Pro software. And yeah, like I said, so far I'm really enjoying using it. So before I round off this episode, I just wanted to let everyone know that I'm deciding to take a short break from my podcast. My plan is to record multiple episodes over a certain length of time and release them on like a scheduled sort of play out. So you will still hear walk, talk and shoots in the future, and the plan is to hopefully do a mini series of my trip to the Isle of Mull. I'm going there for 2 weeks in August. The main reason to get married, but I'm very much looking forward to going to find certain animal and bird species on the island. So I very much like to record places that I visit and if there's any special encounters that I want to share with you. So yeah, this is basically, it's given me the chance to plan out where I want to go and the subject I want to photograph rather than winging it each time, because I've been bad at that the last few walk, talk and shoots. I sort of think, oh, I'll just go and see what's there. But because I'm planning for my trip to Mull quite extensively, I've wanted to apply that skill closer to home. So I know exactly what I'm looking for. I know where I need to go and how long I need to spend my time in that area. So yeah, that's sort of where I'm at currently. I won't give a time of when I will return, because it might be that I do recordings and then release them scheduled when I'm on Mull, or I could just release them all after the month of August. So there's nothing set in stone for that, but rest assured that I will be returning. I just simply need the time to plan out more effectively what I want to get out of my episodes. And yeah, I think the mini series on Mull is quite a nice idea. But yeah, I'm just going to plan it out as much as I can, and I will be returning. That is a sure thing that I can guarantee. So that just leaves me to say thank you all so much for listening. I very much enjoyed creating this content for if you're a photographer yourself, or if you're just interested in wildlife in general. It's been really nice to be able to share my thoughts and my experiences with you, the listeners. So I shall round it off. I will speak to you all in the future. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon. Goodbye. My podcast cover shows my own image created using Canva. The theme music is provided by Purple Planet Music. Check out their royalty-free music at purple-planet.com.